Good afternoon, guys. I hope everyone is well. This is your daily market analysis for today. It is Tuesday, the 18th of August. I apologize for the mess. There's some bags down here as well, so I do apologize for the mess in the background. But I hope everyone is doing good. Let's get straight into this video. Before we do start with the charts, understand the content on this channel is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not a financial advisor and nothing shared in my videos should be considered financial investment or trading advice. Understand that trading and investing involves risk and you should always conduct your own research before making any financial decisions. Any past performances discussed does not guarantee future results. You are responsible for your own financial decisions. So, like I said, Tuesday, yesterday we had Canadian dollar red folder news, which was CPI for the Canadian dollar. We can see on here previously it was 0.4%. The forecast is 0.4%, and then the actual forecast that came in was 0.5%. So we can have a look at that in regards to like USD CAD. And then going into today, 8 a.m., we had obviously Great British Pound news. Looking at Wednesday, we have Great British Pound CPI at 8 a.m. again. So obviously that'll have an impact on London session. And then we also have 8 p.m. US dollar news, FOMC meeting minutes. So again, big news event on Wednesday tomorrow at 8 p.m. So let's keep an eye on that. Thursday, Australian dollar news, which obviously will probably be asleep for anyway for the guys who are in Europe. And then for the rest of the week, nothing really to discuss in regards to like red folder news. But as we know, unless Trump puts a tweet out, something happens with Iran, Trump farts, whatever that may be, it'll have an impact on, of course, the chart. So just be prepared, as always, for that. But yeah, let's go straight into the charts because, look, let's be honest, we obviously had, if we look back to last week, what day was it? CPI we had on Wednesday, and then obviously the core PPI on Thursday as well. And we was expecting some sort of movement out of, this consolidation with the US dollar. And as you guys can see, we haven't had that. Let me just remove this. So we haven't had the consolidation really give us anything. Like you can see, we've broke out a tiny bit. But if you're just looking at this scenario, you can see that this is just simply a liquidation, consolidation area at this moment in time. Loads of liquidity at the bottom, loads of liquidity on the top. Now, of course, what we've identified, not that it's the cleanest, but we do have this daily supply area here. So, it's going to be interesting to see if the market today or tomorrow obviously dips above, fills in the gap here, the imbalance, taps into this daily supply, and then carries on downwards. Of course, that is one thing, one scenario, or we could obviously get the break above to potentially come into these daily supply areas. So let's obviously wait and see what happens with that. But yeah, nothing much to discuss on the daily in regards to the dollar. Looking at the four, of course, yes, we've been pretty accurate and pretty what's the word? Well, pretty accurate anyway. With obviously calling these supply areas out because if you're looking at the 4 hour, you can see that yes, even though we're consolidating, we have obviously had this 4 hour trend go on. But again, ideally, we would want to see market just give us more with the major pairs. So looking at the scenario at this moment in time, for me personally, I want to see this supply area met. So I want to see a deeper retracement, which aligns with what is talked about on the daily, and then potentially have this area be where market goes and breaks a new low. So what I'm trying to say is pretty much the same scenario as we can see when we have the pullback into the supply, and obviously we move away, but we build up a load of liquidity. What happens? Market comes back into the supply with the imbalance below, and then we get that move away. Same again, market comes close to that supply, doesn't actually mitigate it. Then we get this big move away, which obviously then people start to look for sells in. And then as you can see, market comes back up, takes out any stop losses, fills in that imbalance left, taps that supply, and then goes again. So yes, we are in this little supply area here, but for me personally, I'm looking more for this supply area with all of this imbalance to be filled. So hopefully that makes sense. If you jump down to the one, of course, as well, if you look at the 1 hour trend, you can see that if you look from here, you can see markets obviously came up into this area, and then obviously failed to go and create a new lower low. And then if you look at this internal structure, we have obviously been extremely bullish. You can see we've had this demand area mitigated just before, of course, Asians come up, broke above. So for me personally, with the dollar, I want to see if the dollar is going to obviously come into this demand area and then see if that's where market's then going to push higher from this demand. Obviously, we built up some liquidity, got imbalance below this low as well. So let's keep an eye out on that, of course, and see what happens. Now, going into the major pairs. Obviously, we don't need to discuss too much in regards to the dollar, but as you guys can see, nothing more to discuss other than the fact that, we've obviously had this consolidation. Yes, we've had a bit more of a breakout with EU. We are still inside of that supply area. So it's going to be interesting, are we going to get some sort of downwards movement and then see how we react from this demand and then potentially go and get that new higher high? Again, that would align, pardon me, with if the dollar does short from this supply. So that is one scenario that we can obviously potentially keep an eye on. Now, if we jump down to the four, what can we see? Well, again, 4 hour higher low, 4 hour higher high. I just want to see a rinse and repeat of what we just discussed with the dollar, but same here. The start of that imbalance is here. This is my 4 hour, demand area. So ideally, what I would like to see is if market could potentially, create that downwards internal structure and then get that shift away to obviously go bullish again. Um, so yeah, let's see if we can get that. Again, we have got that imbalance. We've got this 4 hour demand area to obviously be mitigated as well. Now, if we look at the 1 hour, we can see that the 1 hour has been pretty consistent with, you can see the internal structure. During Asian, we've obviously come to this supply area here and it started to move away. Now, of course, we are currently in and around this area here. I don't like the look of it personally. Let me just have a look at the 30 or the 15 minute. Yeah, ideally, if the dollar's going to come into this area of demand, I would like to see potentially EU maybe coming up to like where the start of this imbalance was. So about here, maybe as a 15-minute supply. And yeah, that's probably what I would like to see. Take out these highs here. Again, only if it makes sense with a dollar, by the way, guys. Take out the highs and then potentially see if market obviously can move away from this supply. Fill in the imbalance, take out the highs, and then yeah, go from there. So let's see if your USD gives us that. GBP USD, let's have a look at what is going on. We can look at the daily. We have, of course, this daily demand area, which is where we want to see market come into. So again, hopefully we can potentially see the longs from this daily demand. Ideally, that's what I want to see. If we jump into the four, what can we then see? Well, this would align perfectly with obviously the structure that we're in. You can see we've got this 4 hour demand, this our 4 hour higher low, 4 hour higher high. At this moment, you can see it looks like we have, if you look at the internal, you focus on these, the mini pullbacks here, these candles, you can see. So you know that the 1 hour has gone from bullish to bearish, as you guys can probably notice just by me drawing that. Move that to the side, you can see we've gone from bullish to bearish at this moment in time. So it's going to be interesting. We have a lot of imbalance to fill below. So we'll look at the 1 hour. Can we get into this 4 hour demand area? And then what does that mean with GBP USD? Well, we didn't mitigate, for me anyway, this area of 1 hour supply. We still have some imbalance above, but you can see it's been pretty corrective here. If we focus on the fact that we had this area of supply, which is where market came into for Asian entry model 2 this morning. If you look at this from Asian Entry Model 2, what do we have? Well, we had the fact that market broke out during London. Sorry, Asian finished. Market come up, tapped into that supply, broke out during London, and obviously now it's been a bit consolidating. So if you're looking at this, let's say your stop loss is 10 pips. At the moment, it's done like around a 1 to 2. Again, if you've got a smaller stop, like let's say 8.5 to a 9, you've definitely done more than a 1 to 2 there. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. At this moment in time, we are reacting from this area here on our supply. So you can see market pulled down again, come back into that supply, and then we're starting to move away. So again, all I'm expecting is market to potentially come into this supply. That would be ideally what I would want to see. But Asian Entry Model 2 played out perfectly, as you guys can see. So yeah, that is what I want to see. Now going into NZUSD, daily time frame, let's just remove this. You can see a little bit different because we obviously come into this demand, and then we got this bullishness away last week. Now we have created that new daily demand area here. Let me just sort this out. We have created this new daily demand area here. So ideally, I'd like to see market come into this demand and then go bullish from there. Coming into the fall, that does align as well. Now, again, you remember last week, we was obviously wanting to see either of these like demand areas below met. Just being completely honest, like NZUSD hasn't really been the best. Like we missed this demand area, missed this demand area, missed this demand area. And at this moment in time, we've got these two demand areas in which I'm obviously going to keep an eye on. Now, again, my more favorable area would be the one at the extreme, meaning this one below. So, ideally could be seeing market come into, here, shift, and then carry on bullish as well. But understand, as we always discuss and talk about, you can see that we've obviously gone bearish inside of the internal. Now, for me personally, I'm just going to mark out this as a 4-hour supply, and then I'm just going to jump down to the 1 hour so we can look at structure a little bit more. Now, as you guys can see, from here, let's just focus. You can see the market was bullish, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. We pulled back into this demand area, failed to go and create a new higher high, and then we had another break. Then that's where market came back into. We obviously consolidated, filled in that imbalance, and then we've had this again. So understand that the internal right now is bearish. So we have that 4-hour supply area, which we just discussed. And then inside of that 4-hour supply, we have this 1-hour supply area. So for me, I'd like to see, market carry on from this supply. We have a lot of imbalance to fill as well. But again, in order for that to happen, we have to come a bit of a long way to get into that supply. But let's see what happens with NZUSD. AUD let's have a look. Of course, we'll have a look. Daily time frame, we have officially broken out this area of supply. And where have we come into? Well, it's like it's magic, this next area of daily supply. Now, again, yes, we're in this daily supply, but what's happening here? We are extremely bullish. So we have that supply area. We also have this demand area below. So a new demand area to basically think about. Now, what I'm trying to say is, let's say we get a short scenario on the lower time frames from the supplies. I would then keep an eye on this daily supply, daily demand, and then that could be our next higher high potentially. But again, let's see if that makes sense from the lower time frames. Going into the fall, you can see that pretty much, obviously just been corrective and pretty bullish. We do have this 4-hour demand area below. We do have obviously, did this get mitigated? There's a 4-hour demand. No, so we do have these two areas here. So these two areas are where I would like to see market come back into from a 4 hour. I'm just going to mark out this because I deleted it before, so you guys can visually see what I'm talking about because that 4 hour structure is there. So yeah, I would ideally want to see market come into this. This is we have imbalance below here, a load of wicks, which is liquidity, and we have imbalance here. Now again, looking at the 1 hour, what can we currently see? Just quickly on the four, I feel like we have Asian high here, right? Asian high. If we carry on shorting downwards, it could actually come into this area here and fill in that imbalance because we have multiple confluences there. We have got the Asian high, which is liquidity, and then we also have the imbalance on the four, and then we have the 4 hour supply. So three confirmations to basically potentially see market do this and carry on shorting. Um, and just go back down to the 1 hour. Yeah, that would be my more favorable. Because from a 1 hour, I don't like the look of any of this. Because if you look at this, we obviously had this supply area from 1 hour supply is where Asian came into and then melted away. So naturally, this would be our next 1 hour supply. Now we are in there. What I think, if we was to move away, let's say that the dollar, for instance, was to go bullish from this demand, what I would expect AUD USD to do is if we don't get into this supply, we will 100% take the high of this Asian. We'll take the high of this Asian, and then if the dollar goes bullish, then we can expect AU to potentially carry on shorting. So we might have a scenario where it's Asian entry model one for you guys who are obviously doing my or done my course. So let's see what AUD USD does. Now, USD CAD, I don't really like the look of. It's been consolidating the past 2 days, so Monday and then obviously today been extremely consolidating. If you look at the structure that we're in, you can see that we've come into this area of demand, this area of daily demand, filled in that imbalance above. We have this also daily supply. Now, looking at the four, look at the four, we have this 4 hour supply area here. So it's going to be interesting to see if we can get same as the dollar market coming to this, and then is that going to be where we then go and create that new lower low? Same scenario as the dollar with this supply. Now looking at USD CAD, I just want to have a look to see if you look at the one, you can see that if we just mark out this area of demand, we haven't come into that. So ideally. 1 hour demand. Ideally, that's where I would have been looking for longs from. So here would have been ideal that we dipped and then obviously went. Um, so yeah, for me personally, if I was to look at this and I'm looking at the dollar as well at the same time, the dollar still hasn't come into that demand. So if the dollar dips into that demand and then goes bullish, I would expect the same scenario from here. Now, of course, what we could do is if that happens, it could just come into this area here. We have a demand area here, but just for me and my, if you want to call it OCD or just my trading plan or whatever, we have imbalance still left and we have this demand. So ideally, I'd like to see a punch above, below, take out this low and then go. But like I said, we might just get a scenario where it comes into this area of demand here now that we've taken Asian low. So yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens with that. USD CHF. Now, daily time frame, you can see that market obviously is reacting from this supply. And we've had since Thursday, I think, yeah, Thursday, Friday, Monday, we've had market, move away from there. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, let's say the dollar, does carry on shorting, we could potentially expect the same with USD CAD, maybe. Now, again, 1 hour is extremely consolidating still, so it's not the best. Let's just remove this. It's not the best really to look at. If I look at the four, we can see that we are inside of that 4 hour supply now. So a little bit more earlier than the dollar, because obviously, ideally, I would like to see the dollar getting up into here. So we are earlier into that supply. So that could potentially mean if the dollar goes bullish, then we could obviously just go higher. We have this supply area up here. That could be a possibility, maybe. So just be aware of that. But we are in that supply area. We're filled in that imbalance. If you look at the structure that we're in, let's just focus from here. We had higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, failed to go and create a new higher high, and then market broke. Came into this supply, created a lower high, and then a lower low. So this is our 4 hour range from here. 4 hour lower high, and then 4 hour lower low. Um, so a valid area. Now, if I just jump down to the 1 hour, we can see that, of course, it has been pretty consecutive here. Market pulled back. Let me just have a look at the 2 hour just quickly. Yeah. Because the 1 hour is not the best, but markets pulled back into, this area here. Like you see, I had the bullish candle going into out into obviously like New York, London, sorry. Markets pulled back. Again, you can go off the body. Um, Tapped into there now went bullish again. So just looking at this right now, I would potentially like to see if market is going to react from here as a 30-minute demand. Let me just mark this out a sec. Yeah, because this area has already been mitigated by here. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna see how this area does. Again, would that align with the dollar? Well, yeah. Well, dollars has just tapped into that demand. What's AUD you just done? Okay, so AUD USD is done exactly at this moment in time what we just said, took out Asian high. So if the dollar does go bullish right now from here, if the dollar goes bullish, like I said, then we can see how AUD USD reacts. Um, so yeah, what I was obviously saying then with USD CAD, sorry, USD CHF is maybe seeing market coming to this area and then got carry on bullish. So let's see, let's see. Um, USD Japanese yen, obviously extremely consolidating, so I'm not going to talk too much on it. Failed to come into this demand, but pretty much filled in that imbalance. We look at the 4 hour. Yeah, I don't like the look of the 4 hour at all. All these, I don't know. USD Japanese yen can suck a fart, for all I care. So let's see. Let's see how it plays out for the rest of this week. But yeah, man, that is your daily market outlook for today. As always, guys, I appreciate every single person who tunes into these YouTube videos. We will obviously catch up tomorrow. Take care and God bless.